If you look past that step, the third step, to 4 to 9, in my opinion, those steps are articulated in incredible and phenomenal ways in religious traditions. The Jewish tradition would call those steps the celebration of atonement. The Catholic tradition would call that the sacrament of reconciliation. The Christian tradition generally would speak of the practicing of the act of forgiveness. The Buddhist tradition would refer to it as the movement of purification. What's at the essence of this is transformation.
You know, you got to do some writing, you got to do some looking. And to me, that's what spiritually is about. You got to seek the truth as it relates to you. I started getting this churning in my gut, right? It was bad, and I was getting real emotional, feeling it coming, right? But you know, we're taught not to cry, and I didn't want to cry in front of anybody. But I saw my life, and it was really like a newsreel. I saw all the times in my life that I'd flipped my mother off, you know, blah, 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 I'll drive when I want to. Just all of the despicable actions growing up, all the way up until, you know, where I was to then. Anyways, I cried. We stood up, I held it in, and it was like somebody unlocked the floodgates. It's like somebody pulled the deck. I finally felt it, and for me this was crucial. I had to feel it. Talking about it and intellectualizing it and understanding it is fine, but for me I needed to feel it, and this is in retrospect. And I cried. I cried like an infant cries, meaning you couldn't console me, I didn't want you near me, get away from me. I sobbed hysterically at the age of 33.
I'm sharing with myself and God and another human being the exact nature of my wrongs. And this other human being was my sponsor. And for the first time in my life, I am seeing who I really am. Because all of these years I've been, you know, wearing a facade who I think I am, and running from some realities of my inner spirit, so to speak. Behind all the facades and appearances I project, beyond all that is that God that's within me.
There was always it always felt like a burden was on my shoulder, like I had these muscles that would never stop hurting. Like I would hunch my shoulders to take the pain away, just try to draw them together to take the tension off. And when I did my fifth step, that was gone. I went to move my shoulders, and a feeling that has always been in my shoulders all my life was now no longer there.
The confession of sin in the beginning of the service in the Lutheran order of service has the phrase, "We are in bondage to sin and cannot free ourselves." And that really sounds very much like some of the things in the AA literature. You know, we're in bondage, we can't get out of it just by our own efforts. In the Christian understanding, it is God who comes to free us from that bondage. And that's the whole understanding of the work of Christ, is that freeing people from that bondage to sin.
One of the things my sponsor said, he said, "You know something, Pat?" He said, "A reformed anything's a pain in the butt." You know, that reformed sort of evangelistic person who was this person but is now suddenly turned the leaf completely over, that'd be nice to think that really happens, but I just don't think I don't think pragmatically it happens. I think people want to do that, but I think we do it in increments.
I think it's called prison religion. You know, all these people who get busted, go to treatment, then they find God, and you know, everything's better. Then you know, then they go out and they do it again. And
as a child, going to confession in the Catholic Church and going back out there and doing the same thing again and again and again, much different from the experience I had in the 12th step.
Are you paying your dues? Because everybody owes a due out here. Somebody everywhere. Because every human becomes self-consumed at a given point, and they will override other humans in order to do something the way they want to do it. So every human out here has an amends to go through. So alcoholics more than some, though. Alcoholics definitely owe a debt because we're destructive, you know. You know, you can write and you can tell somebody about yourself, but when you have to go back and amend yourself to the people that you've harmed, a whole new spiritual awakening comes. You start to understand the human connection. You start to understand how no one's different. You start to understand how you have to give to another one in order to receive. You come to understand what it is to love somebody as you would yourself. You come to understand that every time you hurt somebody, you hurt yourself. So you come to learn qualities that maybe somebody that's naturally considerate would probably already know. I'm not. I'm selfish and self-centered by nature, so that had to be a revelation that came out of me from another power source.